Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the City of Bettendorf Committee of the Whole meeting. Today is Monday, December 2nd, 2024. It's 5 o'clock. Thank you all for joining us. A couple of items for discussion before we hit our consent agenda this evening. First is items to appear number 9 for tomorrow night. This is approving a payment for shelter operations at Humility Homes. City Administrator Decker Plain, why don't you go ahead and kick this off and introduce our guests who are with us this evening.
Thank you, Your Honor. It's my pleasure to introduce Ashley Velez, who is the President and CEO of Humility Homes and Services, and Barbara Mansholt, who is a Bettendorf resident and on the Board of Directors of Humility Homes. And as you know, we put this item in front of you. We had this request late summer, and this is for shelter operations, a little different than what we've done in the past, but shelter operations just the same. So Ashley's going to give us a presentation and then probably take any questions you might have.
Absolutely.
So, Ashley, you want to pull that mic a little bit closer to you as well. There you go.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much for having Barbara and I today. We're really excited to talk about our mission and the impact that we have with all Quad citizens, but also with Bettendorf residents. So as Decker had mentioned, it's a proposal for continued support for our agency. Back in 2022, we had received support for the winter emergency shelter and then also from last year. And so winter emergency was operations just from December 1st till April 15th, as we needed to expand our capacity in order to help more residents that are living unsheltered. It was in conjunction with the Quad City Housing Council. So the City of Bettendorf did help sponsor, help support the last couple of years, but the request is for the ongoing support for our everyday emergency shelter that we have. So our mission statement is committed to ending homelessness by offering housing opportunities and supportive services in the Quad Cities area. So we serve both sides of the river, Scott County and Rock Island County, for our rapid rehousing, our street outreach, and also our veterans programming. And then with our permanent supportive housing, we serve the 5 counties in Iowa. So we serve Scott, Muscatine, Clinton, Cedar, and Jackson. And then in Illinois, for our veterans, we serve 5 counties over there for a variety of programming, as well as 3 counties in Iowa. And then our emergency shelter is for anybody who's experiencing homelessness. So typically, about 70% of the individuals we serve every year come from Scott County, and about 20% are from the Illinois side, and 5% are outlying counties, generally like DeWitt, Clinton. It's not really far. Sometimes people think that we have a misconception that people are coming from all over the state to come to our shelter. That isn't true. We are a larger area that's needing support for those experiencing homelessness now, but they are our actual residents. So we really want to create a home for every person, and the way we do that is from everything from street outreach to shelter to a variety of housing programs, including our affordable rental properties. Need for support. So at any given time, there's about 550 individuals who sleep outside or on the streets in the entire Quad Cities area. That comes from the January count last year. It's called a point-in-time count that's mandated by Housing and Urban Development, where it's literally like it sounds. We go out and we count individuals who are sleeping unsheltered and who are in the shelters. And so we've seen, actually we know we'll see a rise in that number this year in January, especially for families. I don't have the number for Bettendorf. I reached out to the school district, but I connected too late today. But I know there's a homeless liaison officer with the Bettendorf School District, as there are services needed, as we do have kids in our rapid rehousing and veteran program in Bettendorf who go to the schools who were formerly homeless. About 50% of Quad citizens pay more than 30% of their income or mortgage. It's actually a bit higher now. That's going more up to like 50% of people that pay 50% of their income just to basic needs. We have about a shortfall of 6,000 housing units for individuals who are making minimum wage, working multiple jobs. We're losing some housing units, and that's why you're seeing an increase of individuals on the streets. We average from the Bettendorf Police Department about 4 to 6 people monthly in need of shelter. There is a greater number of unhoused individuals, especially out on the streets. There's probably more within the street outreach that I know that your downtown partnership does see. Our average stay is about 60 days. Cost per day is $27.50. It's lower than the Iowa average for sheltering, which is $38.33 according to the Iowa Finance Authority. We believe that housing is a human right. I kind of talked about the programs already, but it all really works together. It's like a triangle, or a circle, I think of it, is that we start with street outreach, hopefully move someone into emergency shelter, and then move them into housing. Oops, sorry. We also we run the Iowa side coordinated entry region, which means that if you're experiencing any type of housing crisis, you have to call coordinated entry to get on for the agency. So we're the lead for it, but people that access that phone number they can get housed with Salvation Army, they can get housed with Family Resources, Bethany for Children's Services, but you have to be on a coordinated entry list. The Bettendorf school system, they are a point of entry, so the social worker there is able to put people on coordinated entry and then go through the programs that way. What they ask questions is they ask about your basically your trauma history and what led to you becoming homeless. So they're pretty invasive questions, but the higher the scoring, it means the more likely you are to die because you're experiencing homelessness. And so we pull people from housing in order to the highest risk of passing away because they're unsheltered, and that's how you would get housing. Our shelter is different as we are there we go. Our shelter is the only low barrier shelter in the Quad Cities, which means you can come to us if you are semi-intoxicated, if you're not on your mental health meds. We want to be able to serve the person as they are in order to build the relationship and get them into someplace safe and into a housing. All the other shelters, we're also the largest shelter in the Quad Cities. The Illinois side has a couple, but they're smaller, and it's a high barrier model. Not that it's wrong, it just means that we're needed just like they're needed, and that's why we come to you today with a request, because we are the only type of shelter in the area. And then street outreach is also, building relationships, seeing them where they're at, and then hopefully getting them into our shelter and into housing. So the request is for continued support of $10,000 for it. We came up with that for our 88-bed adult shelter. We track last known permanent address, zip codes. We came up with it based off of numbers served from the last few years and the $27 a day, as well as our street outreach too. This would also allow us to be more active in the downtown area or anywhere in Bettendorf. We have partnerships with the Downtown Davenport Partnership, and they help pay for having a street outreach worker in the downtown area. We also have a street outreach worker and a relationship through the city of Moline. Both have a component of payment, and then also we report back on data that we received to give like a real time, here's who you're seeing, here's then maybe the next steps to help. Oh, we talked about that. Okay, yeah, homelessness in the Quad Cities is not just strictly a one community issue. It really is everybody that needs to be able to solve the issue. It's not just the nonprofit sector, it's the governmental sector, it's the philanthropy sector, the business sector, and also like the religious sector too. We have to all come together to be able to do that. So I think that's the last one. Oh, and then our contact information. So
Any questions for Ashley?
I think
Nick?
Yeah, thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for being here tonight. I appreciate the presentation, and this has been very helpful. So a couple things that I need help understanding. So I guess a couple weeks ago in the Times, there was an article that stated that there wasn't going to be the additional 100 beds for the emergency shelter. So can you elaborate on that a little bit more? What led to that as, sort of this outcome for you all this year?
So we took it on with the Quad City Housing Council, and it was a 5-year plan that was running alongside a 10-year plan to end the need for the winter emergency shelter and then also create more housing units. So we completed our 5-year agreement to be able to do that, tracked data, tracked the pieces that we know we could do, and we really tried to get the community to help support it, and there wasn't enough support in actually creating the additional affordable housing. We ran a deficit the last 2 years from our own donor dollars, and so we didn't want to do that again because we want to be able to put our money into the actual solution, which is housing. And the agency over the last 2 years added 57 new units of housing, including 45 of those are permanent supportive housing that's funded through Scott County. So our response was, well, if we didn't get enough support, we can't keep taking out a deficit. Our normal emergency shelter every year operates at about $180,000 deficit. We have to use donor dollars to cover that, and that's why we're asking all of the cities and the counties to help us make up that difference, because we do provide a service to all of you. We allow police drop-offs from all the cities. And so if we're able to make up that deficit, then we can take those dollars and actually to creating the solution, which is more housing, specifically more permanent supportive housing. I would say the need is definitely still there, but there wasn't enough community support rallying against it. And the individuals that we're seeing that were coming into the winter emergency shelter are significantly mentally ill, and so some of them we can't even take in. And so it's really a greater community issue, as there needs to be more state beds, more group home for those individuals. So
Got it, thank you.
you're welcome.
So so you're running a $180,000 deficit. Is that that's just the emergency shelter?
Correct. That's the year-round emergency shelter. Yep.
Got it. So you mentioned in the information you shared there that you've come to the other municipalities, local cities. How has the response been from them? I know there's different funds of money that they have access to. So has it been well received? Are you getting additional funds from the additional communities here?
Yeah. So Moline funded last year at $50,000, and we have a request in, and we presented to them, and they asked us to do a 3-year budget, and we asked for about $50,000 for the next 3 years from them. Rock Island County Mental Health, they fund our street outreach a portion, and then also the emergency shelter. And then we have a request into Davenport. Not as much support yet, but they are looking at giving us ARPA dollars for it. And then we're still need to speak with Rock Island. We haven't approached Scott County as much with the emergency shelter because they've funded $3.2 million to purchase housing, and then they're funding 3 years of permanent supportive housing. So we weren't asking them for sheltering as they made such an investment into the solution. And then also East Moline, we've asked them too.
Got it, okay. So what is the capacity that the shelter generally operates at? I mean, so 4 to 6 people are coming from Bettendorf. How often are teams being turned away because it's at capacity with limited bed space for this winter? Is that a concern? What's your thoughts on that?
So during the summer, it runs lower. It just kind of depends. So we'll be able to go over a little bit in capacity, but not much. And so with the police departments, we do not want to be able to turn people away. We want to be able to then potentially have like a separate space for those. Currently, we reserve about 4 to 6 beds for all the police departments, but especially for those who will help us in payment in running it, you would receive like the first spot of it versus another police department or a city that's not being as cooperative, because there is such a cost with it. And unfortunately, since the need for emergency sheltering is so high, we have to figure out what is the best way to do that.
Got it. Thank you. Only final question I would have, and so if we move forward in supporting this, would it be possible to do like a 6-month recap?
Oh, yeah.
And just understand, how did the winter end up for you all, and from a community perspective, just getting a better understanding of, again, what the outcomes were for that?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to, if it is funded, if you want to just email me, here are the data points that we want to be able to know, here's what we can track. So Moline has us track for street outreach, like where most people are. We track age, income, and a couple other things, and we provide that information, as we do also ride-alongs with their police department. The Quad City Chambers with the Downtown Davenport Partnership, they have us track numbers, age, basic demographic, and then also outcomes of where they end up at. Rock Island County Mental Health, I don't remember exactly, they're a little similar. So yeah, that wouldn't be a problem at all.
Okay.
And we do for Moline, it's every 6 months, and DDP is the same thing too.
Got it, okay. Thank you. That's all my questions.
Thank you. Jerry?
Thank you, Honor. My question is, the street outreach program, Could you give a little more details about what is that? You send someone driving up and down the street looking for homeless, or?
Yeah, honestly, that's kind of what it is. It's we know generally where people are sleeping. You can really tell by like the trash in the area. So they'll start there, or businesses will call us to say, "Hey, I've seen somebody out in this location." So our street outreach team will go to where the person, they believe someone is, and they would leave like a little hygiene bag for them with like a business card that has like the address in there, information how to get to us. It'll have usually socks, a little bit of hygiene stuff, and then they'll just keep checking back in that area. We rely a lot on the police also too to say, hey, we know where this person is, and so we'll go out and try to find them. And when we do make connection with them, it really depends on the person. Sometimes they'll say, yeah, I didn't know you were around, and we can take them right into the shelter. Sometimes they'll say, no, I'm good. I don't really want to come inside. So then we just keep visiting them until we can, get them inside or housed. I mean, some individuals have income, and so we're able to work with them to try to get them into low-income housing, get them into regular housing, using deposit assistance and that sort of thing. We do have a donation center that we use to then fill the person's house so it actually looks like a home. So making sure they get furniture, basic need items. So street outreach is they kind of have a loop of where they know people are, and every day, they'll go looking for there, or they'll make appointments with people to try to get them to basic IDs, different food pantries, even asking, is there a way or someplace else do you have a family member someplace else? Because the county will pay for bus tickets for them to get reunited with family or get back where they're coming from too. So we work with them on that as well.
And then my other question is for veterans. Does the VA have a program to support them?
Yes, the Veterans Administration is really leading the way in ending homelessness. We are the contracted agency for the Veterans Administration, so we have a transitional housing program, homeless prevention program, a rapid rehousing, sheltering. We work a lot then with the local VA site, which is the CRC, Community Resource and Referral Center in Davenport. And so they've also expanded their services that we have with the VA, that there's a medical like case manager that would follow on if they have medical needs. We have a shallow subsidy program for people who might be on the verge of homelessness, and really just because pricing is so expensive right now for housing and cost, will help pay for their rent or half their rent for up to a year to keep them in their home. The veterans homelessness, we did bring that to a functional zero in 2020, which means that if you come into the system, we're able to rehouse you, and there's always a spot for you. And so with that, we've seen really great luck. So if there's ever a veteran who's experiencing homelessness, they shouldn't be. They should come to us and we can help them. I will say sometimes, people do hold the sign saying they're a veteran, but they're not, because it does get sympathy. We do have to check to make sure you have a DD-214, and then depending on what you qualify for, depends on the different programming.
And then the VA funds that.
Yeah, the VA funds it the more than HUD does. They've thrown a lot of money at veteran homelessness, which is really great.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions? Greg?
Thank you, Your Honor. Ashley, my questions are really more philosophical in nature as opposed to your organization. I think you're doing worthy and good service. Before I talk to you, I wanted to ask the chief one quick question, if I could, Your Honor.
Yeah.
We received a memo from
Unless
the
he
chief.
doesn't want to answer.
We received a memo from the chief this evening indicating that HSI is the only option we have at this point for housing the unhoused. When I used to work for the city way back in the day, there was a chaplain's fund that the police department had that they used to provide overnight lodging for people who were homeless or transient, even gave people a tank of gas to allow them to keep their travels. I was just wondering, before I start, whether that fund still exists.
Yes, thank you. And I did not mean to mislead when I put that in the memo. We do still have the chaplain program, and we also, Scott County Community Services also has an option. Now, I will say that's not an option that we use
Not
in
the
every
preferred.
or we use in every situation. I would say we probably don't use it for the chronic homelessness. When we have a more dire need, we have a family, like you said, something that came up, Where it's literally, last resort, yes. I mean, we do have those options, but what I would say, the individuals that Humility Homes and Services works with, it's not usually an option unless it was very dire need.
Yeah. Thanks, Chief. I just didn't want the memo to be misunderstood.
Yeah, no, I appreciate
I
clarifying that, thank
could
you.
answer too. I would just agree with what the chief had said. Usually the individuals we see have much higher needs. I know we've worked with the school system, with the police. If we especially know if a family or an individual is going to move into a house in like 3 days, and we know that there's like an end goal, we've been able to then divert away through our coordinated entry, through other items. But those who really, the end result that we have, it's a longer term need for them, we would not access that funds, because we also don't want to set people up when we know the ultimate goal or ending goals are going to come into shelter anyway. We do want to reserve that for people who we know, like, okay, there is a solution, let's get them to that solution, and that's the best option so they don't come in.
Ashley, when this was raised at the council's goal setting, I was probably the one who raised the most concerns. So I'm only speaking for myself, not for any other member of the council. And what I indicated to them at the time, and what I'm indicating again, is that your organization is worthy of support. But so too is CASI, so too is Riverbend Food Bank, so too is Gilda's Club, so too is the Salvation Army, so too is Every Child, which I donate to. Those are just the local organizations. The regional or the national organizations, Alzheimer's, MDA, multiple sclerosis, cancer, heart association. There are many, many worthwhile organizations. And Bettendorf is not an entitlement city. For larger cities, the federal government gives money each year to the cities, CDBG money, Community Development Block Grant, which has a purpose of helping to support low mod housing, low mod income, the homeless. A number of social services can be funded through that program. Because we're not an entitlement city, what we have to do is allocate tax dollars to this. So it's money that we require of people, and we say, you have to pay this, and now we're saying, pay it to you. As I say, there are a number of organizations that are very worthy. Who am I to say which one is more worthy than another? And I know that we can't afford to support everybody. Now, that being said, during goal setting, what we heard from the chief and from Decker is that you take the homeless in Bettendorf and shelter them and help them get back on their feet or at least survive for a while. And you do that in response to police department requests. I don't want to say that that's purely transactional, but it helps me to explain why it is your organization should get money when CASI or Riverbend Food Bank, I'm sure Riverbend Food Bank would say they say you give food to Bettendorf residents, why your organization would be given a priority status over other organizations. Now, when it came to the council the first time, there was discussion at goal setting that talked about this being done. So when the police say, hey, we've got somebody who needs help, you guys will say, yeah, we'll take them on. When it came time for the council to look at this in the first instance, there was no written understanding that that was our relationship. And so I asked that it be deferred to get that written understanding. We do have that written understanding now, but it came to us exactly at the same time that there was a public announcement that you were reducing the number of beds, not doing the emergency programming. So it raises the concern again, and I think Councilmember Pauzinski raises it as well. Will you be able to continue your ongoing relationship with the police department and handle the intake of people that the police department will bring to you as a result of our agreeing to help fund this aspect of your organization? I realize you do many, many other things as well. But from my perspective, what gives you the opportunity to get assistance is that we are able to say, we are being able to use or have access to your organization when our various departments need it. So I just, maybe you've already answered it for Nick, but I'll ask it again.
That's okay.
Do you foresee any difficulty if the police department brings 3 individuals in the course of a month, or they bring 10 individuals in the course of 3 months? Do you foresee difficulties in handling those referrals from the police department?
Sure. And then can I touch base on also before what you mentioned about?
Please.
Um,
I'm
yeah.
willing to learn.
Yeah, no, I understand what you mean by, do we support K-Side? Do we support Riverbend Food? Because there are a lot of worthy organizations and we work so much hand in hand with them because, unfortunately, food stamps is meant to, help individuals, but with there's rising costs with some of the families we work with, sometimes that doesn't always cover it all, right? So we do rely and our service coordinators work with people in our housing program to get them food. I would say that when it comes to like a K-Sci or a, Every Child or that type of thing, we get a lot of calls from those individuals or those agencies saying, I can't even do anything with them during the day because they're so focused on where am I going to go at night. And so they can't work on their mental health goals, they can't work on school goals, they can't work on any of that if they don't know where they're going to go. So for us, we definitely believe that, housing is a basic need just like food. And we need to cover that basic need first so then you can have the other social service agencies be able to help, as needed. And then as far as the police department one, we were reducing it just because people thought we were closing. We were not. We just were not doing the 5-year, the expansion of beds. And so we wanted it to be clear that, we're not closing, but we're not expanding out. But with the police departments, we will be able to have beds reserved, as we do have a room, we call it our special circumstance room, that can put up to 8 people. And so we're prepared to have those individuals with police drop-offs, because as we've already been doing year-round with the police department, they have to bring the person into us. So we'll know that they came from the PD, we get the badge number, that information, so we track it. So I don't foresee an issue. The only issue I would see is if the person comes to us and they're not able to care for themselves. They have to be able to, use the restroom, all of that on their own. They have to be able to get to, across the street where the meal site is. The only thing would be is if they couldn't get there, then they wouldn't be an appropriate referral to us. That would be the only time I could foresee us turning someone away at this point.
Would be, it would be helpful to me if when you do your report in 6 months, you indicate how many individuals, I don't want names, I don't want circumstances, just how many numbers of people you were able to help in response to a request from the police department. I think that would be beneficial.
Absolutely.
Again, my concern, there are so many worthy organizations, and there simply isn't the kind of access to funds in Bettendorf that would be available to support so many organizations because we just aren't at that level yet. The city is growing. I anticipate at some point we will be, but not today. And so I appreciate your coming here and talking to us and answering my questions.
Oh yeah, absolutely, and thank you for those questions. I always say that ours is really not a black or white issue. It's like a yes and or a both and or a yes and no type because it is such a complex issue. And yeah, CDBG dollars, we do receive that, but there is so many, just the need is so high. So block development grant, we do get it. I would say that if you wanted to learn more about how cities and governments could work to help support housing agencies, Iowa City is a great example. They do a lot to help support the housing agencies there, both the county and the city. Rockford would be another one whereby they don't really make the investment into the others. They make the investment into the housing, because if you invest in the housing to cover that basic need, then the other systems, like you had mentioned, would work more efficiently. So there are some, if you wanted to learn more about it, that there is a way and a rationale, because I appreciate you want to have a logical response to taxpayers to say, why are you supporting this and not supporting something else? Because everybody has a cause that they're passionate about, but there are a lot of other cities and municipalities and counties that do this, so.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Yes, Scott.
Thank you, Your Honor. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Thank you.
Because back in, I think it was 2008, when the John Lewis Community Center was in flux and was essentially defunct. Thank God, no pun intended, for Humility of Mary stepping up and filling that void. And they've done that consistently for many years. And I don't know what we would really do, or what if this disappears? And we're seeing cities wrestling with this across the state, across the region, across the country. So you watch Des Moines with the criminalization of homelessness and the removal of encampments where people are, look, I have nowhere to go. Now the Peoria mayor is refusing to sign an ordinance that the council passed to fine people who dare sleep on the street, $15 a day, so on and so forth. So when you talk about the municipal interest and the absurdity of, look, this is a systemic problem, and you're not the solution holistically, but part of whether it's food assistance or if it's counseling or mental health or any of the, so I guess in the big picture, we really need to figure out the ongoing funding. And I worked in the last 5 years in downtown Davenport and physically see a manifestation visibly. There's a change over the last 5 years of people that are visible in that corridor. So, again, I think these questions are fantastic of like, is there adequate staff? Is there adequate funding? And in Bettendorf, with respect to Councilmember Jager's comments, the $10,000 in what we do for many other things really is a smaller number. And it makes me it begs the question, like, is there enough community support from other areas? Or I guess I'm a little bit surprised that it's kind of for what we're getting and the net that we're provided. And if it wasn't there, that it's really only $10,000 because the demand is growing and is greater. And it is a municipal interest because if that resource isn't there, the domino effects fall in a way that none of us want to. And again, not to get too philosophical, but there is a question there is like, what is the future, the next 5 years? Where are the trends? You may have touched on it, but I would love to have a little bit better grasp on it.
Well, that's a perfect question for something that is getting released next month. But because we're on the inside, we got some of it last week. So that's a good question that the state, especially the Iowa Finance Authority, which is all things community development, housing, that sort of thing. They hired a consultant and he did, there's a database, it's called the Iowa Profile. If you go on Iowa Finance Authority, you can put in your zip code and it will give you 5 different reports. It'll talk about the future of housing need, economic, disability, disparities, like racial disparities. I'm trying to think the other one. And it'll show you like per zip code, the capita of people, of housing and food. So then then they created a database that has over 900 data points from all across the state, across the country to say, okay, how do we look to end it? And there's something called a functional zero, which is where you bring people that are experiencing homelessness, you can then house them, so it's not like a downtown Davenport. That's why we work the most with them, is they've seen such an increase in it that it has a direct impact on your businesses. You want to bring in new individuals to come into your city. You want to bring new businesses, but if you don't have the housing and you have, probably get in trouble for an eyesore is what we always get told and, said that that you don't want that. Well, there is a way to end it because it is a systemic issue. So they took that report and then they created what'll come out. It is an actual roadmap of like 90 different resources, bunch of community issues, and they've put a number on what our community needs to bring it to a functional zero. The number isn't that bad, honestly. It's 12 to 14 million across the entire Quad Cities to bring it to a functional zero for having the right type of housing, having the right type of permanent supportive housing, all of those things to make systems run, because then your federal dollars that HUD gives us would then work appropriately. Right now, you're housing people in housing that isn't appropriate to them because they need a higher level of housing. They need more support, but we have to take greatest need first wherever you have an opening. So sometimes the system is setting people up to fail. And Iowa Finance Authority realized that, and then they're going to release out, to everyone to say, hey, this is the actual number. And to me, $12 to $14 million would be doable if everybody takes their piece, the philanthropy community, the community, everything, because then all of your systems will be able to work correctly. So thank you, Scott. Yeah.
Thank you.
Any other questions here? Greg Adamson, do you have a question? You can just shake your head. Well, go ahead.
One quick question, Your Honor. Just approximately how many what percent of the people that have the need for housing are veterans? Just a swag.
Probably about 20, overall 20 to 25%. We served about 300, or maybe it's 30%. We served about 300 veterans and their families last year out of the 1,200 our agency serves. So I'm not really great at math in my head, but whatever that is. But it's about 300 of 1,200.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. Anything further?
If I
Yes,
may.
Chief, of course.
Just, these are just observations. I appreciate the presentation too. From my observations, these are more complex, complicated situations. The individuals that we're talking about with the 88 beds oftentimes have substance abuse or mental health issues. They're the ones that, unfortunately, if you look at the inmate website, a lot of times it ends up resorting in them getting arrested for trespassing, and they just keep cycling through like a revolving door in our jail. And I will just say that we are starting to see more of an influx here, our officers here in the city, where we do get calls from businesses and things like that. And it's not necessarily just concentrated, in the downtown area. So those are just observations that I can say that are occurring. So it's needed.
Thanks, Chief. All right, ladies, thank you very much. We appreciate your time this evening. Very nice to meet you and see you again. So I appreciate your good work. All right, let's move to a consent agenda item. I'm sorry?
Did you have a motion to put it on?
It's on.
Okay, thanks, sorry.
No worries. Let's move to our consent agenda item, item C, and this is for our Finance Director, Jason Schatt. Certainly something we've talked about, the Oracle Cloud Services and NetSuite for government. Well, you got slides for us too?
I promise, it's only 50 or 60, Your Honor, so.
Thank you
be out
very
here in no
much.
time.
Better than the last time you were up there.
I thought this was a good opportunity to kind of provide an update on where we're at, and both our process of implementation and budget, and talk a little bit about this next step. So you will recall, way back in 2021, we did an IT needs assessment that identified a bunch of needs. At the top of the list was modernization of our financial systems, both the old AS400 Naviline system that we've since replaced, HR and payroll systems, utility billing systems, the whole gamut. We did an ERP search during 2022, came to a vendor selection in June of 23, and in just about exactly 12 months, we went live with that selection with the Oracle NetSuite for Government product. So that's quite a quick turnaround for such a big change. I showed you this slide at the time we made the Oracle selection, the things that Oracle provided out of the box. And then on the right-hand side are things that were on the horizon. We have tackled the enhanced HR time and attendance and applicant tracking with the UKG Ready product that is in implementation today. Mark and his team have kind of landed on sticking around with Llama to tackle that licenses and permits area. And then utility billing is still kind of hanging out there. And tomorrow night, we are asking council for authorization to enter into a contract to move our utility billing work from the current provider to an Oracle NetSuite product that is brand new to the market. What if we were to do nothing? We're currently using a software that was purchased in 2003. Not quite as old as the financials we replaced, but old nonetheless when it comes to technology. That software, if we were to remain with it, will require an upgrade, a costly upgrade, and I'll show you that here in a minute. Also, we were notified recently that the vendor is ending support of our current payment processor, so we would have to make a change in payment processing that would actually increase our transactional costs. We pay a little bit to these processors for every transaction that they process. Most of these are credit cards. Some are internet payments of some type, but the software vendor kind of wanted to insert themselves into that piece of the market and take some of that business for themselves. So that would increase our transactional costs if we were to do nothing. At the same time that we were kind of wrestling with those decisions, the Oracle product came online. We had a unique opportunity to actually be a beta tester for this product. So we've actually kind of seen it as it was built and had a lot of input into the things that cities like Bettendorf need in a system like this. Oracle built this from their utility billing software that is used by much larger organizations, private utilities, much larger public utilities, Cook County, Illinois, for example, that have millions of customers. So they had to kind of right-size what they already knew for small to medium-sized governments, which is exactly what they did with NetSuite for the financials. On the implementation side, they've offered a pretty steep discount. And in our conversations, I said I would be comfortable making such a move if they could keep our subscription costs to about what we're paying today. And they were able to achieve that. And then you can see how the two options kind of differ in transaction fees. That is only an estimate and only includes credit card transactions. So there's going to be some different types of transactions we can accept, which is really exciting. But all in all, it's really cost neutral to move to the Oracle product or stay with the incumbent provider. But given that we've made this commitment to Oracle NetSuite, we kind of want to bring everything into one place. Staff is recommending we make that move to the Oracle product. We would add a separate payment processor called Invoice Cloud, which is really exciting. It's going to give our customers the opportunity to pay in a multitude of ways. We can go to paperless billing. We've never been able to do that, which will be a huge cost savings for us. They could pay with, there's pay by text functionality, there's Venmo functionality, so all kinds of new payment methodologies that we've never been able to offer our customers. So for ease of use, simple integration to what we already have on NetSuite, and improved customer experience, I think we're really excited to recommend that we make this move to the Oracle service. Just to bring you up to speed on where we are from an overall budget, back in FY23, before we actually went out and found out what this was going to cost, we stuck a number of $2 million in the technology fund budget for this purpose, the financials, the utility billing, the payroll. After coming to a contract agreement with Oracle, we revised that down to $1 million over the next couple of years. And then in the table below, you'll see where we are today with all of these contracts that you have approved, what we've spent to date and what's remaining. But even with the addition of this Oracle NetSuite utility billing, we would add $40,000 to the implementation budget. That would bring our implementation contracts up to just about $565,000 of that $1 million budget, so well under budget still. We do plan to use some of the remaining budget to kind of soften the impact of some of the annual subscription fees, which we've talked about in the past. All of these softwares require annual subscriptions in excess of what we've typically paid in the budget, but certainly a part of our budget now. So every time I come to you with one of these new pieces of software, I say, we're still within budget, we're still within budget. I wanted to provide the proof to you tonight before you make this decision.
Jason, would you remind the council who Barry Dunn is?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. These were the contracts that we have signed for this particular project, this ERP project, which I'm kind of lumping all of these new softwares into. Barry Dunn is the consultant that helped us. First, they walked us through and created our IT needs assessment. Then we, with council's approval, hired them to actually write our RFI and help us evaluate the responses we got from vendors. After that was successful, we further contracted them to just kind of manage the implementation project. Having never done this before, we thought it was important to have their eyes on this project to make sure that the vendor is doing what the vendor says they're going to do, and also keeping us on task throughout. So that's been, in my view, money well spent, obviously a part of the overall $1 million budget, and we're still way under. UKG then is the HR payroll piece that we've added in and working through that implementation with the HR folks as we speak. And then finally, we'd add that Oracle utility billing into the mix. So back to that slide from earlier on, I can put with your authorization tomorrow night, I can put a red check box or check mark on the utility billing piece. And I kind of wanted to stick this up there because I think this is worth celebrating. This has been a huge amount of change for this organization in really 18 months, I would say. I think if we get started on the utility billing implementation as soon as possible, we could be actually sending out bills from that system probably be March, April of 25. So another pretty quick implementation, but it's such a huge change. I think we're all feeling the benefits of it. Obviously, going through this change creates some difficulties and some snags and maybe some headaches and heartburn for the folks over there temporarily, but I think we're over the hump. Everybody's getting used to these things, and the automation, the workflows, the efficiencies that we're finding are what we expected and why we did this. And I just think it's really something to celebrate, not only for staff, but council for your support all the way through. So that's all I have for you.
Questions for Jason? Anybody? Greg, do you have a question for Jason?
Nothing, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And Your Honor, just Kathleen can maybe chime in. We go live with our first HR payroll in January.
We're slated for January 7th. We have a lot of additional meetings this week just to start to solidify that. If we do have a January 7th go live date, we'll be doing training the last 2 to 3 weeks in December for all employees. So it's as Jason said, I have to repeat it, it is a large change for our employees, but we're hoping that the efficiencies, the no paper is really going to make it sing. So that's what our tentative date is, so stay tuned.
Anything else on this item? All right, then I'd like to entertain a motion that it remain on tomorrow night's agenda as consent item C.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, with unanimous support, this will remain on tomorrow night's agenda as consent C. Jason, don't get your hopes up. Somebody can remove it tomorrow and vote it down.
After this, I hope to be done with these requests.
Great job. Please thank the team. Way to go. All right, council, let's take a look at the consent agenda. Are there any items on consent anybody wishes to discuss at this time? Greg J.
Thank you, Your Honor. While I'm happy to, consent aye. While I'm happy to trust the committee of Mayor Gallagher, Councilmember Brown, staff members Plain, Ryder, Kidwell, and Richland on the appointment of the new Park and Rec Director, I wonder if someone from that group might just talk for a minute or two about the person and why they're the right person for the job.
City Administrator Plain, you want to start that discussion? And Ms. Kidwell, if you then might want to add something?
Thank you, Your Honor. Thanks for the question. We had the 3 finalists that we interviewed. I would say that John quickly became the candidate of choice. He was very impressive. Comes from a parks background, 8 years, relatively young for all the experience that he has, but tremendous enthusiasm. Clearly outshined the other candidates in the amount of research that he had done. He had come to every park in the city, had walked Forest Grove Park with tenacity, had great ideas about what he saw for that particular park. went over to the community center, really immersed himself in us, and just clearly outshined the competition, and is on the Iowa Parks and Rec Association, is involved in the National Association. He bled parks, and I think gave us certainly the confidence that he was ready for this opportunity, because this will be his first directorship, and was so excited to be there. I think we were all pleased with his enthusiasm, the amount of research that he had done, the questions that he posed to us in his interview. He clearly was, in my opinion, the right candidate and the premier candidate amongst the three finalists.
Just in case you didn't know, we did ask each of the interviewees to provide, we give a project, and Forest Grove Park and a vision for Forest Grove Park was a project for all of them. He did a lot of research, and not only did he look at all the previous plans, but pointed out things that he thought were good and bad, and was extremely enthusiastic and knowledgeable. Kim, do you have further thoughts? Or Kathleen?
I
Or
guess I
Kathleen.
would just concur with what Mr. Plain and what you said, Mayor. He was just really kind of a standout candidate in my mind. Really did his research, knew a lot about Bettendorf and the city itself, and he's just really passionate about parks. I think he'll be a great fit with the staff, not only the park staff, but also the city staff as well. So I know he's really, really excited that he was able to get this position, and he's ready to start, and he's already been calling me, so he's ready to go.
Kathleen?
I would have to just say ditto. I think the biggest thing is the passion that he truly does have, not only for parks, but also for taking that next step. He's currently a recreation superintendent in Sioux City, so this is a very logical step for him. As Kim had stated, we've had conversation with him. He continues to have questions. So keep an eye on him, because he's going to just really have some traction, and he's probably going to come to you with so many ideas. You're going to be pleasantly surprised. So I think it was a great hire.
Lisa?
Let's say another thing to add, he was really, really involved as far as in Sioux City, and understands the importance of relationships and partnerships and that in the community and what that can bring to the position and our needs. So
Yeah.
I think that he really shined on that.
I think some of those questions that he had for us, he was interviewing us as much as we were him. I think he really loves his job and the people for whom he works and the city work that he performs. But I think he found comfort in the culture and the things that you all have set as department heads and city administrator as the way we do things here, that made him excited about the position. So we're excited.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, any other consent agenda items? Okay, then I'd like to entertain a motion to approve all consent agenda items at this time.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. I don't have anything to add to tomorrow night's agenda. Any council person have anything to add to the agenda for tomorrow? Hearing none, I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We stand adjourned. Go, good work, people. We'll see you tomorrow night, 7 o'clock.
Evidently.